Hi everyone, today we'll be talking about whiskey. Since whiskey is a very vast topic because of its type, specific regions, and their production process, I have divided it into 4 parts. Here's the first part. The traveling monks in Scottish and Irish monasteries were the first brewers of whiskey. The monks were unable to produce wine on account of weather as it was not suitable for growing vineyards and grapes, and because of this, they switched to fermented grain mash. This is how whiskey was born. The Gaelic word for whiskey is Ushka Baha, means water of life. A debate always exists as where whiskey was first produced, in Ireland or in Scotland. But if the Irishman is to be credited with the origin of whiskey, then it is the Scottish who has to be recognized for making the drink famous. The Scotch Whisky Regulations define Scotch whisky as a drink which has been produced at a distillery in Scotland from water and malted barley, to which only whole grains of other cereals are added, and all of this should be processed, fermented, distilled, matured, and bottled at the same distillery. There are other regulations that I have added. The minimum ABV of any whiskey is 40%. The oak casks that in which these whiskies are matured should not be exceeding 700 liters, and the period of maturation should be at least 3 years. No added substances, only caramel coloring can be done. Now we'll talk about types of whiskies. The classification is done on the basis of ingredients, composition, distillation, region that they are produced in, and the cask in which they are matured. First, we'll talk about the type of whiskey on the basis of ingredients. There's single malt whiskey and there is single grain whiskey. The single malt whiskey has only 3 ingredients: barley, yeast, and water. The production is similar to the beer. The malted barley is soaked for 2 to 3 days. Germination is done for 3 to 5 and halted by heating it in the kiln. In most cases, to give a smoky flavor, a peat smoke is introduced in the kiln. This is followed by mashing, fermentation, copper pot still distillation, and maturation, which is of minimum 3 years of aging in oak casks. Now there are different regulations regarding whiskies in countries that produce them. But since whiskey is closely related to Scotland, my video will be focused on regulations from Scotland only. The age statement on the bottle of single malt whiskey is the age of youngest malt in the mix. What happens is that the whiskies are stored in oak casks with a capacity of 700 liters that we read earlier, and these, when bottled, are always mixed with the same kind of whiskey but from different barrels. If the whiskey is produced at more than one distillery, it is called blended malt. Now this is a different thing, and we'll talk about the blends later in the video. Now coming to the single grain whiskey, the whiskey made using grains other than barley like corn, wheat or rye are called single grain whiskey. The production is very similar to that of single malt whiskey, just the distillation is done in column still. These grain whiskies are not very popular in the modern world, and hence these are primarily used to create blended whiskey. These grain whiskies are typically distilled in column still. Now let's talk about the other type of whiskies on the basis of the composition. We have already learned about the single malt and the grain whiskey. We learn about the blended whiskey. There are 3 types of blend: blended malt whiskey, blended grain whiskey, and a blended whiskey. Now the blended malt whiskey is a blend of 2 or more single malt Scotch whiskies from different distilleries. These are distilled by pot still. The blended grain whiskey is the same, just single grain Scotch whiskies and distilled by patent still. However, the blended whiskey is a blend of one or more single malt Scotch whiskies with one or more single grain Scotch whiskies. More than 90% of whiskey's sale in Scotland and Ireland is created by blended whiskies. Most cocktails which contain whiskey as the base are made using blended whiskies. It is not only to make it economical, but also single malt or grain whiskies have a critical flavor to itself, which might not go well with the overall taste of the drink. However, one can often upsell by using premium whiskies in the mixed drinks. Hope you like the video. For any questions, please post it in the comment section. I've also attached links regarding the regulations, the additives, filtrations and reused casks. So please check it out, and the next part will be coming soon. Subscribe, like and share, and thank you for watching.